Hello, and welcome to our Masterclass on conflict management. We are going to take a scientific view of this subject today, and I think try to show you how the work that we do in this course is different from anything else that's happening in the world. So, my name is Richard. I'm from Canada. I'm very pleased to be joined today by some great colleagues and professors of our university, our Trilogical College. I have on my left my dear friend Fabrizio Bigliotti.
Hi, everybody.
From Italy. On my right is Sari Koivukangas from Finland.
Hello, everybody.
And our dear friend and psychoanalyst and great teacher, Leo Lima from Brazil.
Hello, everybody.
So we're here now to try to bring you a perspective on what we're doing in this course. And there's the picture of all four of us, if you can't see us totally here, and our credentials, what we bring to this wonderful course, the science of conflict management. And we say science because it's based on the work of two great Brazilian psychoanalysts, Dr. Norberto Keppe and Dr. Claudia Bernhard Pacheco. So what we're looking at here in this science of trilogy is a union of theology, philosophy, and science, which sounds very theoretical. But what it allows us to do is to be able to complete the study of the human being and of the society that we've elaborated. So we have a way to see reality, to see what's going on in a more complete way, what's called a specialized way, a unified way, a deeper understanding and specialization in every area of study, every area of human interaction, something previously impossible because of the separation of the disciplines. You probably noticed that. My brother is a biologist, and he can talk about evolutionary biology, right? But he has nothing to say to somebody who studies microbiology. Right? Like when you go to see the doctor and you have a physical problem and you go to your general practitioner and you say, well, I can't deal with this. You need to go see a heart specialist or a bone specialist or a skin specialist, right? We've separated all of these fields. And now in Dr. Keppe and Dr. Claudia Pacheco's science, we're bringing that all together again. So we have a complete holistic view of the human being and of the society that we live in.
And this brings a great relief for the students to be able to understand the things in more complete way, the interactions between the things, and understand the reality that we are inserted in.
Because if you have a conflict at work or a difficulty with somebody, that difficulty is not related only to that person, right? It's related to your own view of life, your own heritage, how you grew up, how you see the world, your philosophy of life. All those things are connected, so you can't separate them. If you do, you have an incomplete view. And what happens in our medical world, of course, we just give medicine, right? And so there's, in these kinds of ways, you can see that this difference of unifying all of these fields makes a huge difference to how we see the world, all right? So that's what we're going to do a little bit today. Interdisciplinarity, right? A true interdisciplinary subject. So instead of trying to separate everything or understand all the parts, we're trying to bring everything together to understand the whole and how all the parts act within that whole. So that's what we're going to do in our little class today, to give you some feel of what we do in our course on conflict management. Okay, makes sense? Makes sense to you?
Absolutely, Richard.
If it's making sense so far, then I'm happy. We're going to start with a little module that we try to talk about constantly, and you've probably seen this iceberg analogy before, the psychological life. And what Dr. Keppe says, we are what we don't know about ourselves. So what that means is all of this part under the surface of the water, that's what's really controlling our lives. And if we don't have any knowledge about that, we don't have any consciousness about what's going on there, all the things at the top will be distorted, misunderstood, misinterpreted many times. So we have to go into this psychological, philosophical life, the way we see the world, the way we relate to the world, if we're going to understand how to deal with conflict, how to deal with difficulties, even how to deal with our own progress, our own self-sabotage, our own bad habits. All of those things come from this part under the surface. Here we have Dr. Claudia Pacheco, the director of our incredible Facultades Trilogicas, our Trilogical Colleges. Knowledge of the human mind is mandatory today. There are so many conflicts in human relationships, at work, in all professions, that if you don't understand what's going on in people's minds, you'll never truly succeed in your profession or your life. You'll always feel that something's wrong, or you'll find things going wrong and you don't understand why. Difficulties you have in your own development, in maybe if you're a salesperson, difficulty dealing with clients, with customers. If you're working on a team, difficulties with various team members, all of that you won't understand. And so what we do generally, we project that, oh, it's the other person, right? We don't want to see what's going on inside. So this is what we do in our course, and it's very different from what you see in conflict management generally. The general conflict management mentality is all behavior makes sense. In our view, it doesn't make sense because it's irrational. It's inconscientized. So we need to try to understand what is going on rather than just sort of explaining it or excusing it, as often happens in conflict management.
And Richard, in our society offers a lot of excuses because, of course, it's not that one person can be neurotic or pathological. Everybody has this. So the others, they always offer us this excuse to say, look, my boss is like this, my coworker is like that. So it is important to go back into this inner dimension of our intentions and feelings, etc.
I have a book written by a very famous psychologist in the United States called How to Deal with Difficult People. And they have the 12 personality types or something like that you encounter in your workplace. And this book is written always, like many of these books, written from the perspective that you're totally normal. And you have to learn how to deal with all of those difficult people on the outside. And so you're constantly developing strategies to deal with the difficulties in other people. But if we don't see the difficulties that we have, like if I have problems with authority, that comes not from the situation of authority, but from something that's going on in my reaction to authority. And if I don't understand that, I'm never going to be able to navigate that. I'm always going to come up against authority figures that will intimidate me or upset me, right? And I won't ever really be able to get beyond that. So this is what we're going to deal with in our first little exercise that we're going to look at here today. This young man, and this comes from a Brazilian publication called Você S.A., which means You Incorporated. It's a kind of a business publication looking at how to make yourself a better professional. In fact, the title of this magazine, this particular issue, is What Type of Professional Are You? And in there came this case study, which I think is a wonderful example of how we work differently from what's going on almost everywhere in the world, right? I have good ideas and want to participate, but my shyness won't let me. So when we talk about this example in our course or in our language classes or in any kind of workshop that we're doing, I use this often for communications workshops. What do we see here? We see a guy with problems. So generally, we put the people to work and say, so what kind of advice could you give to this guy to help him? How would you help him to overcome this problem? Because that's mostly what happens in our modern world, right? We want to, we got a problem? Let's develop an action plan to solve that problem going forward, right? Much of coaching works on this premise. So here's what comes up when we ask this question, right? First of all, this very helpful advice believe in yourself. Just have confidence. Well, that's my problem. I don't have confidence. Yeah, just believe in yourself, right? Okay, so that's lovely advice, but it doesn't really help the person because the person is lacking belief in themselves, right? So practice with friends or in front of the mirror. Okay, again, useful. It can help people to develop more knowledge of what they want to say, but it doesn't really get to the part that's underneath the surface, right? Take a communications course. Okay, obviously, this is useful. Take an acting course. Go to see a psychologist, get therapy, work on your self-esteem. Or if you're an American, just do it, right? Just take your rear end off the sofa and go and do it. And right. And now all of this advice is wonderful and helpful. It shows that people are trying to give advice to help the person, but it doesn't deal with what's going on before the situation. So why does the person have this shyness? What's going on there? What's impeding the person from expressing the good ideas they have? Right? So now we come to a more psychological point. And the first question I think we should ask this person is, how do you know if your ideas are good or not? Right? Because it's one thing to say, no, I've got fantastic ideas, right? It's like if I said to you guys, I'm a really fantastic tennis player, guys. I was really a good player in Canada and I love to play tennis. And then you say, oh, great, I've got a brother who loves to play tennis and he was a semi-professional player here. And I go, Opa, oh my gosh, now what? Right? Now what? Now I'm going to have to prove myself. I'm going to have to put myself into the situation. And now I'm going to see if I really am as good as I think I am or not. And if I don't want to face that, I'm going to say something like, oh, that sounds fantastic. I've got a little problem in my shoulder this week, but maybe next week I could call and we could.
Really, Richard?
Yeah, a little problem. I've had problems with my shoulder for a little while now, And so I'm going to start finding a way to avoid facing the reality of the situation. Like a football player when he has to kick a penalty. Right? Suddenly all the cameras are there. The whole stadium is watching. He has to put the ball on the spot there. And then what's going on in the head? Am I really as good as I think I am? Can I really do it? This goalkeeper is really excellent. Everybody's watching me. There's a lot of pressure. If the player starts to enter into that kind of conversation, they're going to have difficulties performing under pressure. So there's a lot of things going on underneath shyness that we want to try and illustrate here to show how we work differently in this area. So how do you know if your ideas are good or not? Well, the only way you know is
working, practicing.
Speak them out.
Put them
Doing.
Yeah, you're in the meeting and you put the idea out there. And what will you discover the moment you put your idea out into the group? You're going to discover I have one idea and Fabricio has 15 ideas. Right?
Well, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. And Sadi has questions that can challenge whether the idea is effective or not, whether it's going to work, whether it's practical, whether it's economical, whether it fits within the budget. The moment I put my idea out there, I'm going to discover if it really is a good idea or if it's, not that great. Maybe everybody ignores the idea. Right? So the real fear I have here is not that I'm shy to put the idea forward. The real problem I have is that I don't want to face the actual reality that occurs when I put my idea into practice. So it's another problem here. Dr. Keppe puts it this way, and we work a lot with this idea and a lot with this book, actually, Metaphysics 1, The Liberation of the Being. The fear man has towards action is in first place due to the consciousness it brings. Now, when I have to speak in public, I have to face a lot of consciousness. I'm very nervous. I'm shaking. My face is red. I don't remember all the points I wanted to make. Everybody's looking at me. That person's judging me. That person's sleeping. Right? There's a lot of consciousness that comes up. And what happens is, because I don't want to deal with that consciousness, I just make an excuse. I don't like public speaking. I'm afraid. I'm shy. Those are the excuses we use to avoid the real fact. I don't want to see what's really going on. Right? Do you understand the distinction, the difference? It's a subtle difference, but it's very important. Because if you think that the problem is shyness, you'll stay in that problem, like my sore shoulder in tennis. I'll stay with that for the rest of my life to avoid having to face the reality of the situation. So it's actually very different from being shy. It's an attitude against seeing what's going on, of accepting the reality of the situation.
Richard, it comes to my mind one typical idea that students bring in our classes. That is, I am afraid of making mistakes.
Right.
Yeah. And actually, is it true? Is really the person afraid of making mistakes, or is he or she afraid of seeing that he or she maybe can make mistakes? So that's the subtle point. Yeah.
Not quite as good as I want to be or as I think I am. So it's here. Many people don't want to see how many mistakes they make because that would make them have to stop idealizing themselves. If I go into the tennis game, I'm going to have to see that I'm not quite the tennis player that I think I am, right? Or like the football player kicking the penalty it's a big thing to have to face that, right? If you miss the penalty, these players have to face a lot, especially if it's in a crucial situation, right? The final of a World Cup or something. The people have to face, the player has to face the fact that he wasn't able to perform as well as he wanted to perform. And how he deals with that consciousness will determine how the rest of his career goes. Some people can be destroyed by that moment in sports or anything. We call it choking in English. And it's a big thing to have to face because you're not wanting to really deal with the reality. So you want to stay in this fear or this anger or, I guess I was no good at that after all. You know, these kinds of excuses that we use in this situation. Wasn't that an interesting, like a fine distinction here? So this is how we approach it. We're approaching this now with the under the surface, the iceberg under the water part. What's going on behind? And not with the excuses that we use to avoid seeing what's going on. And shyness, in this sense, is a type of excuse that we use. Now, my dear friend Fabrizio, let's bring this into a more social situation, right?
Where do problems arise at work? Because all these elements that Richard has just brought to us, they happen at work too, in the work environment and in other social situations. For example, using the example of the iceberg, continuing because this iceberg is very interesting, we have the tip of the iceberg that shows us, for example, in companies or in this kind of situations, how, for example, people know the mission of the company, the vision of the company, the values, the knowledge that's necessary, what the best practices are, the standards, the abilities, the skills, the directives, and the know-how. So everybody more or less knows these aspects. These are what we call the conscious aspects. But what is actually unconscious, or inconscientized? What happens for example, in the work environment, in the relationships, this toxic competition that many times can be also stimulated in many companies, kind of, intrigue, gossip, power struggles, this happens all the time. But you perceive that this kind of attitude, envy, jealousy, sabotage, or greed, they can harm the final result of a teamwork, for example. For example, how can a team work well if somebody is making intrigues or gossiping? They are debasing the work environment. They are attacking the work environment. So how can I, for example, share what I know if I know that Richard is competing against me? So this unconsciously is like, I think you can say, undermining the natural flow of things in a company.
Yeah, look, if I have a lot of ability and know-how, but I also have this inconscientized sabotage, I won't use the ability and know-how that I have, or I'll destroy that, right? Exactly. And if I have information that could help the department, but I'm in this toxic competition mentality, I'm not going to share anything with anybody because I don't want you to be better than me because we're competing inside the company. And so I'm actually going to hold back information that could help you to be better. Subsequently, our team will be less productive than it could be because of my inconscientized pathology.
So, Richard, unconsciously, what happens? In fact, we will never use what we know, even if we are like capable, we have skills, etc. So imagine what the result is. So it should be really necessary. And this is what we try also to do in our courses, to bring these elements that are really impeding, they are preventing us from developing in our profession, our jobs, but also preventing the team as a whole to develop. And this is interesting, Richard, because I was in our classes, we found these very interesting elements, common causes of dismissal at work. In general, and this is possible, people are dismissed also because they don't have the capability, they don't have the necessary skills, etc. But many people, they don't know that many times they are dismissed not because of lack of skills, of capabilities, but because of attitudes. We could say toxic attitudes, negative attitudes. Look at this. For example, this was a company, Sage Felippelli outplacement. This is an old statistics, let's say, but very interesting.
Totally relevant. They've done these studies many times, Fabrizio. It's always the same. 90% of the reason people get dismissed from work is for these reasons, and 10% because of the lack of skills and knowledge. So it's much more in this area than any other.
And people, they don't even think about that. So look at this. To be moody and impolite, you can be the best in your area, etc. But you are always moody, impolite. You are aggressive, kind of violent with some people. To dress poorly and have a bad hygiene. Can you imagine this? Yeah. I don't think it's necessary to explain. To be a poor team member, somebody that doesn't bring anything, that doesn't contribute, that doesn't cooperate. We were talking about toxic competition, but actually, how can the work flow better? Through this cooperation, working together. This is why we call teamwork, And to be unengaged in the job. What I'm caring about only about the perks, the benefits, but I'm not really interested in what I'm doing. This is of course unconscious, but the person does like this. To be prejudiced, to be negative, pessimistic, and a whiner. This is a very interesting, the person that always complains, no, this is not possible because of this, that,
We have already tried that, doesn't work.
It doesn't work, imagine. There are people that are really, really specialized in this. To not listen to others. So my opinion is the best. I don't want to, and this also is linked to this, the next, to be inflexible and rigid. If you don't listen, it's because also you are inflexible, rigid, intolerant with the others. Especially, for example, when somebody can show some mistake. This happens. And to be mediocre, to not accept the values of the organization. So these are only some of the motives, the reason that people are dismissed, And this, of course, impedes the natural flow of energy. Because imagine a person that is aggressive or always complains. What do you think is, or how do you think is the energy of the environment, of the work environment?
So somebody comes and says, Richard, I got a great idea. Oh, another idea. Right? That's never going to work. I can't. Right? You're never. It's not going to. It just dies in that moment.
Or you always come with these great ideas and what? So like some criticizing, willing to criticize. So it creates a bad energy. So it's very interesting to watch now. Just a little excerpt from the TV program The Universal Man with Cesar Soares, one of our teachers, explaining the phenomenon of resonance, how this example of the pendula is related to human relationship. So let's watch it and then we come back.
Pronto, eu montei aqui um experimento de física muito simples que pode explicar muito claramente para os senhores o que significa esse fenômeno da ressonância. Então aqui os senhores notam que está pendurado nesse fio 4 pêndulos e somente 2 deles têm o mesmo comprimento. Então eles são iguais entre si, mesmo peso e mesmo comprimento. Então eu gostaria que os senhores prestassem atenção no que vai acontecer aqui. Eu imprimi o movimento nesse primeiro, somente o segundo está recebendo de forma, vamos dizer assim, simpática, ressonante, o movimento deste. Notem que esse parou e esse assumiu todo o movimento do primeiro. Agora é a vez desse retransmitir de volta para a fonte o movimento recebido. Notem os senhores que esse já começou a se movimentar e esse está parando. Parou totalmente e é esse que tem energia. Então a energia que está nesse agora, de volta para o simpático. Ele vai parar. Está parado e aquele em movimento. E os outros insensíveis ao movimento dos dois, a essa troca. Isso indica que no ser humano esse fenômeno pode ser expandido em termos da consciência, que a consciência é energia. O que eu acho assim muito interessante na ressonância é que o ser humano ele pode ser identificado de forma análoga ao que acontece com aqueles pêndulos do experimento, né? Que a consciência do indivíduo, a patologia, ela vai diminuindo a consciência da pessoa e acontece exatamente como que aconteceria com um pêndulo que vai diminuindo o comprimento. Então ele vai perdendo a capacidade de receber o movimento daqueles outros pêndulos que são idênticos a ele. Então o ser humano, na medida que ele vai aceitando a patologia, ele vai vivendo a patologia, ele vai perdendo a capacidade de receber a consciência e ele vai se identificando com seres no mesmo nível dele. Então ele vai trocando energia com seres semelhantes a ele. Então, por isso que é importante o processo de conscientização. Porque a conscientização ela faz a consciência da pessoa aumentar. E na medida que ela vai aumentando, então ela vai recebendo o benefício de pessoas que têm melhor qualidade de vida.
Okay, guys, so you see, for example, now we can watch this graphic, yeah, showing the pendula. So imagine the pendula are people, yeah. You see that there are 4 pendula here, A, B, C, D, Imagine that there are 4 pendula, A, B, C, and D. And you see that the 2 pendula, A and C, they have the same length. So imagine that these are two people in perfect resonance among them. What happens between them? They communicate and they exchange energy, so ideas, etc. So what happened to the work? It goes, it flows, all right? And the others that are not in this kind of resonance, in this kind of vibration, they don't move. It looks like it doesn't touch them.
Yes, and it doesn't matter about the proximity. That's what's so interesting, right? So you could be in your office and with a really good spirit, and your customer in another city could be resonating with that without even perceiving it, because it's not about distance, outside time and space, this kind of thing. So our attitude, and everybody who works in sales knows that, right? Your attitude, how you deal with your difficulties and problems, your positivity, this has an enormous impact on your customers, even if you don't say anything about that. They feel that energy. So this is resonance, and it's very, very powerful. You know how one person negative inside the company can destroy the whole morale of the department. And the opposite is also true, right? People can lift people with their energy.
And Richard, it's very important what you said about the distance. It's not a matter of being like very close to each other. What is really important is the energy, the intention, what is inside us. So this explains also this phenomenon of telepathy. Like, some suppliers or some client customer calls us, I was thinking about you right now. Why? This is not by chance. This happens because of this. And this experiment science can explain this for us because this happens. There is this resonance. It is for true.
You can create a vortex of energy that actually brings things because of the energy that you have inside the department, inside the company, as you're experiencing in your new school. Right, you create. Sadi is working in our new unit and creating this energetic vortex. She and Leo, and this is attracting people. They don't even know how. People from Finland and Sweden. How is it happening? The energetic pulse is resonating everywhere, and that has enormous implications for our businesses, for our personal lives, for our relationships. Fundamental principle. This.
So, Richard, too. Explain better this phenomenon of resonance, I've chosen just a little video of a great guitar player, jazz guitar player, Wes Montgomery. And it's like a kind of improvisation. They start improvising the blues. So I would like you to watch it and see how they start to get together playing, very spontaneously. This is a typical example of resonance also in music, Okay.
I think I'll try some blues.
You've just seen an example of music of resonance. So because music, anyway, musicians are workers. They work together.
And they didn't work out this arrangement beforehand, right? This is all happening spontaneously based on resonance with the other musicians. And you sort of, in that way, the people know what the other people are going to do. Like Pele could feel the defender coming up on the wing, right, to pass the ball for a goal. It's a resonance. It's not like a logical, rational explanation. It's something that happens vibrationally in the inconscientized world. And if we're open to that, the resonance that we can create together can lead our companies and our planet, our society, to a type of paradise. This is where we're going with all this.
And Richard, one of the most important characteristic is like to listen to others. So in the example of music, you see that everybody is listening to the others. And this is really important also in a work environment, to listen, to be open, as you said. Now,
okay.
Sadi.
So, Sadi, take it away.
I'm going to speak a little bit about action, how through action we create this resonance. And in the beginning, Richard spoke about Analytical Trilogy that is based on theology, philosophy, and science. And in human being, we also have these three elements that correspond: feeling, thought, and action. And in the trilogical education, action is fundamental. The learning process in our college works a lot with action. And through the scientific discoveries, we can see that action brings many benefits. In fact, everything we have in the world is done by the action. We saw the musicians, their actions, the houses we have, the streets, the civilization, arts, schools, companies, they all depend on action. And in conventional education, action is very much left aside, also because of this fear of seeing the mistakes. Because, of course, when we are in action, we will see the mistakes and we can improve and get better. And so in our course, the students will be engaged in action. We have good action projects, and many of the students, they found very meaningful voluntary work, project, to develop their skills, work together for something meaningful for our planet and our environment. And this brings lots of enthusiasm. When you can do, you can participate. And it's through the good action, and we will study this scientifically, we will study the metaphysics that is behind that, that human beings, they restore their mental health, physical health. And actually, love is an action. So all this we will be able to put in practice. And I know people have this great desire to participate, to do. And because of the inversions in our social structure, sometimes it's quite difficult to get started alone. So in a group, in the classes, with the teachers, the students will be able to participate in good action projects. And they will not only learn for themselves, but they will also learn to transmit what they've been learning in the great communication classes, dealing with all these situations that Richard and Fabrizio were talking about, such as dealing with shyness, with the fear of exposing, and getting much better on that, and creating this resonance among people who have this interest in goodness, dealing with conflicts, having a better working environment in the family, and the results have been very good. So I hope you will participate and get into action and join in these classes and experience. You have to experience the consciousness, the actions in the practice. Also, teacher Leo is going to tell us about the differences still in the therapeutic aspects. In our course, we have very practical workshops with psychoanalysts, really dealing with the conflicts in case studies, in practical terms. So it's a course that is very different from conventional by its practical nature, that you will be able to apply what you're learning in your everyday life.
This is where, as we say in English, the rubber hits the road. It's in this area because, if you've got all these theories and ideas and consciousness, but you're not able to apply it, well, that doesn't help at all. So Leo, being a psychoanalyst, he can bring us a vision of how we see these difficulties in a different way from most of the orientations in the world today.
Yes, we have a book called Alienating Psychotherapies, where we have done these studies showing that many times these approaches to behavior, how to understand human behavior, usually people try to improve, obviously, the behavior. And many times they try to change the behavior. And we have made a research about that, and this has shown that many times this has a worse effect. Instead of improving, the person gets more nervous, more shy, as we have been seeing here. So our approach is very different, and we are going to share with you in this course. You learn and see in action, as teacher Sadi said, in practice, that this approach we have, the trilogical approach, is much more effective. So I would like to show you this, for example, a comparison between traditional therapies and our trilogical therapeutic method. For example, when people have problems of being negative, in many situations, many behavior, people have been shy, problems of lack of motivation, not participating in the teamwork, not being successful, right? Or not having motivation, difficult relationships, as Fabrizio was pointing out, the major cause of dismissal is most in this area, relationship, right? Not people's skills. So all these problems that people show, lack of confidence, or people who don't behave appropriately, having many personal conflicts with colleagues, customers, direction, administration of the company, all these sorts of conflicts. Or, for example, stress, which is also a major cause of problems in the company, right? And for the person too. So usually these approaches, psychological approaches, they try to train the person, they give training, they give techniques for the person to change, as it were. If you're shy, you're supposed to be more communicative. If you don't participate very much, they will encourage you to participate. As teacher Rich said, if that is your problem, you're not going to be able to do that, right? Because that's what you cannot do. So in our approach, we don't try to help the person to change initially. Obviously, the final goal is for the person to change, but not initially. If you concentrate yourself in changing, what's going to happen? You will put on a mask. You will not be genuine. You'll be showing something that you are not. And that is only going to make the situation worse. So what we do, going back to that chart of ours, the figure about the iceberg, we are going to dive inside the water and see our intentions, what's really going on, the root cause of the problem. And normally these therapists, they believe that people have problems by nature. For example, you are born shy, you are born not communicative, you are born with lack of motivation. In our approach, we see that this is not the truth. People have sanity in our basis. Our nature is communicative, is happy. We all have these good elements in our nature. So when we show these problems, we have to see why we are not motivated, what we are doing to our natural motivation. So we go to this root problem and we try to conscientize how much we are blocking our natural skills and all these problems the person has. So it's not a matter of creating a sane reality, creating a good behavior, but seeing how much we are blocking it. So this is the bottom of the iceberg that we work with. And then you go back, you recover your natural sanity and skills. And then we can solve all those problems, improve them by first perceiving them and learning how not to block all this, not to destroy our skills. And then our good nature comes back spontaneously. This is how we work, and we intend to show you in our course.
Great, Leo. Now, Leo's saying so many great things there. I was thinking a lot about, as he was speaking, this base of goodness that we have, that the human being is good. And this is the really good news, because we have a base of goodness and truth and beauty. So that is always present with us. The challenge is that we block that, as he was saying. So we have to begin to see the blockages so that the real reality can come forth. I mean, the stuff that we're blocking is the goodness. We're blocking our natural talents are being blocked. And in so many typical methodologies, they want to say, okay, so you've got this problem. Let's develop the action plan for you to solve this problem. When we work with reading groups from other countries, I work a lot with Americans, and Fabrizio with Italians, Sadi with the people from Finland, and other international people. Many times when people are realizing that they have a problem, they get desperate. Have I fix that? What do I do about that? How do I resolve that problem? And we have to help calm down. No, you need to see the problem, because once you have consciousness of it, you'll start to perceive how that attitude you have is blocking something real and something good. So if we do that, and we'll have these conflict management workshops with Dr. Claudia Pacheco, you'll begin to see in practice how that works. So instead of trying to go from here forward, we have to go from this problem back. What's going on behind or under the surface, as Leo was saying, right? We have to go back and find out the cause of this. Once we conscientize that, we automatically work to improve that.
And the results are wonderful because we already have this basis. So it's not so difficult to deal with shyness or lack of communication, with difficulties in relationship, because we do have these resources. Therefore, the students that study Analytical Trilogy, they become leaders in the company, family, able to deal with the conflicts.
Well, there we are. So it's a extraordinary thing that we're offering here. We're very excited about this course and feel that with this Science of Analytical Trilogy, this is really the leading edge. There is nothing on the planet today that is taking us to this place of being able to deal with conflicts like we're doing in this course. So we're very excited about it. We hope that you can join us. If you're interested, there's information for our website and also a telephone number of contact. You can talk with our secretaries about that. And sometimes what happens is you want to have questions answered by the teacher. So we're available to do that. The secretary will put you in touch with us, and we're happy to help you with any questions you have about this incredible course. So there we have it. It's our Masterclass for today. Wonderful to have you with us. And we really encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity to learn more about this science that really can bring a better society in the human world, which is something that we desperately need. So goodbye, and thank you for joining us. Wonderful to have you with us.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.